This week on the Droids, we've waited decades, and finally we have a Star Wars TV series on Disney Plus to watch, review, and talk about endlessly. All of that, only Mando, this week on the Droids. Welcome back to the Droids You're Looking For, a Star Wars podcast. Alongside Chris, Ryan, and Sam, I am Mike, and we just watched the first episode of The Mandalorian, and we cannot contain ourselves. We have so much to say. We had to get together and do an in-person live podcast. Now, this isn't live to you, but it's live to us right now, which means we can see each other's reactions. We get to know if a joke works or not just by staring at each other's eyes.
It's almost...
I watched Captain Corelli's Mandolin. Is that not... What's the show we were supposed to watch?
Oh, no. I just got a call. I got a call. Someone's looking for a Mando.
Oh.
A Mando hug and kiss. And I just wrote, hey, whoever you are, that's cool. Love who you love.
Tell them to come on up.
Yeah. You can get that now.
Everybody's welcome.
I assume that's how phones work, right?
Yeah. Oh, it's an intercom. You're
I
talking
only have
I have a Nextel two-way.
the intercom dialed in, so that was it.
Anyway, so Joe and Brian were flying to Boston, right?
Yeah, we got there
There
already.
it is.
Hey.
There it is. Check mark.
Woohoo!
Check mark.
Lowell had forgotten to check the
We've satisfied
engine.
our new wings quota.
You know, in the last episode, we wondered whether or not there was a Wings crossover. I'm wondering whether or not there's ever been a mention of Star Wars in an episode of Wings.
Oh.
That you're doing the rewatch,
I'm
Ryan,
going
right
through,
now.
so
I
I'll
think
let
we're
you
gonna
know.
get
I'll
there.
keep you posted.
There's no way there can't be.
I'll also let you know if
has to
there's
be.
any Star Wars alum that show up.
Oh, I'm sure there is. You know,
Oh, yeah.
very surprisingly, Matthew Fox is in an episode of Wings.
Really?
That is surprising. I heard that Alec Guinness might show up in season 6, but I haven't gotten there yet.
As a ghost.
It's Antonio's father. He's doing a very broad Italian accent.
I really thought that I would be the one to keep on bringing up Wings on this show, but it's been Ryan. And
I should
I'm
say I
very
don't think
pleasantly
anyone
surprised.
would be offended, but I'm part Italian, so like it was fine that I did that.
It works.
Who from Wings do you think will... Okay, predictions.
Cool
We've now
crosser.
seen episode 1 of The Mandalorian.
Yes.
So which actor from Wings do you think is going to be in this season?
Tony Shalhoub.
Oh, the Hackett brothers.
As
You're
the
going
Hackett-
with 2. You're
Yeah.
going with both.
You're going with
The
Steven
Hackett
Weber
brother-
and Tim Dale.
No,
The Hackett brothers as Gold 2 and Gold 4.
Yeah, exactly. Fly again.
That's what I want.
All
Wings report in.
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
The only logical answer would be Tony Shalhoub.
Yeah.
But you know what? If a Crystal Bernard shows up,
I think Shalhoub's the most obvious answer, but
Well, remember him in
Thomas-
Men in Black?
Thomas
That's
Hayden Church.
basically.
Oh,
He
yeah.
could- he could fit. He
TH.
could fit into this world.
Yeah.
yeah, hey
THC.
man, if Nick
Yeah.
Nolte fit in,
Yeah.
THC.
MVP award. By the
I
way.
truly think
Ooh,
I was most.
we haven't even gotten
engaged-
to it yet.
I
Yeah.
was most engaged in those scenes. Yeah. Oh, we should. Before we even say, did we already say there's spoilers all over this?
There'll
We're
be
gonna-
spoilers if you've not watched episode 1 of The Mandalorian, which really, what are you doing with your time if you haven't? Do you have a life? Do you have work, family,
You have a life
commitments?
day?
No.
Yeah.
Life day.
Life day.
Because
It
we have
happened,
none
didn't
of
it?
those, and if we do, some of us do, we're shirking those responsibilities.
Very much so.
That's fine.
That's what
Just
you do.
left the faucet
Hey,
on
a
and
lot
left
of
the
Babies watch themselves. They're resilient.
Babies watching.
I think
Babies.
if we learned anything from this episode of The Mandalorian, babies do watch themselves for 50 years.
Oh, wow.
But don't worry, I've spoken about my dog on the podcast. The dog is babysitting Mike's baby. We're fine.
We've seen that all work out very well in previous fictional stories of dogs watching babies.
Yes, like that Tiny Toons. No?
Yeah.
No.
Okay, I love
yeah.
you, bye-bye.
Yeah.
Nobody?
That's
Yeah,
Animaniacs.
yeah.
Isn't that Animaniacs?
I'm pretty sure it's Tiny Toons, but maybe
Was
it
it?
was
I thought it was
Yeah, the
Animaniacs.
Animaniacs.
You know
Yeah.
what? I think those are all a shared universe. It doesn't matter. Don't worry
Are
about
they
it.
on Disney Plus? There's a lot of. We
I was just
were
gonna say.
talking lots of tunes today.
Pulling
But
out
you
of the
think
vault.
the
vault.
Warner
I know it's
Brothers
Warner.
and sister
So-
on the Disney Plus? This guy. Anyway,
Hey.
welcome to the Lady and the Tramp cast.
Disney owns everything. They might buy Warner Brothers soon enough. I wouldn't
Yeah.
be surprised. So the day started with Disney Plus launching, 6 a.m. Eastern time.
Yep.
People got up and watched it. None of us watched The Mandalorian
No.
at 6 a.m.
We
I watched
wanted to
1
watch-
minute.
I
but
logged
it was
We wanted
the
to
same
watch
as-
it together.
I logged in at 6 a.m. because I forgot my password and I was a little nervous that the servers were going to go down. So I was like, I got to get that password.
You know, I actually talked to someone today, though, who is a very big Star Wars fan, who said it's amazing you need to say to everybody on the podcast that you all waited to watch the episode together.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we did.
Yeah.
It means a
Yeah.
lot, and it means a
Yeah.
lot to each of us to watch it together.
does.
It was
We're
something
also-
special tonight.
It's a momentous occasion.
I don't know if that's true for all of us, but like I have a 10 a.m. start at my office, and I work a 10-minute walk from where I live. So I was just killing time this morning. I actively was like, "I'll wait," you know. So it was great. I wouldn't have wanted to experience this any other way.
Yeah.
That being said, Friday I'm watching it by myself.
Oh yeah, you guys.
Oh, well, we
I
all
won't even remember your names.
You guys can all screw off.
I'll probably watch the first episode too, just to erase this one.
Just to forget this. Yeah.
Just a fresh start. Just something nice.
Well, as we get into our Mandalorian conversation, again, follow us on social media. Twitter, Droids Pod, Instagram, Droids Pod, Facebook, The Droids Podcast. Rate and review us on iTunes or any podcast aggregator where you get your favorite podcast. Stitcher, Audio Boom,
iHeartRadio. We're on now.
iHeartRadio. We're on Spotify.
We're on Spotify.
You can find us everywhere.
And then
YouTube us.
you can YouTube us. That's what I was just going to mention, Sam. Soon, Ryan will be playing through Jedi Fallen Order, which comes out next week as well.
No,
Wow.
Comes out
this
Friday.
week.
This week.
This week.
Oh my
Chris,
gosh.
I don't know if you listen to any
I
of these
thought people would
podcasts.
be listening to this
First
in the past.
streams, first videos,
On the podcast where I had that told to me.
first playthroughs will be going up this weekend,
Just cannot believe
and
it.
then I will be getting some kind of schedule going.
Well, there
This
you
is-
go.
Maybe I'll come hang.
So
while you
come to the
play.
YouTube
Is that
channel.
cool?
It's,
That's cool, man.
Droids Pod on YouTube.
Droids
and
Pod.
so you can also listen to our episodes there too.
Great chance to check out everything the Droids have to offer. We're going to have a whole lot more. We will get to each episode of The Mandalorian. I think there's, a lot of schedules going on. We may not commit to every episode having an immediate reaction for the next
Right.
day. Some of us, maybe myself, just wants to record one on my own after watching each episode. I think everyone's down to listen to that, right? You want to listen to me talk for 30 minutes with no one else
Honestly,
offering
I
anything.
absolutely
Yes.
would, Mike.
Yeah.
Mike wants to bogart the pod.
The special Mike episode.
Well, I do bring the mixing board and I do have the controls.
What is
Yeah,
this-
he
what is
does.
this?
He has all the
Yeah.
microphones. I don't know what to do.
What is this, a Wednesday night episode of Wings?
Just
I don't know what that means.
it means just Mike watching.
Yeah. just
Just
me,
just me watching and
On
listening to
another
myself.
episode of the Mike you've been looking for.
I just want to say that just to highlight how different TV ratings were in the 90s. Wings wasn't a top 20 show, and it had more viewers on average than the premiere of Game of Thrones. That's how many people were watching linear television.
What
at
else
that
were you
time.
doing?
Oh, man.
What else were you doing?
It was Wednesday.
Yeah.
What else
I mean,
were you going to
I
watch?
was gonna make a
Dharma
rep-
and Greg.
I was going to make a reference to wow, that's more than Breaking Bad, but more than Game of Thrones. That's
More than the premiere of Game of Thrones.
That's crazy.
That's insane. Our fragmented culture right now. Oh,
Yeah.
that's tough.
But we could all, and you know what? At least in the 90s, we could all agree on one thing: Wings.
I'm standing
It was
by-
that Helen's cooking was bad, and Roy was a blowhard.
All right.
Every Friday, I'm standing by the water cooler, starting countless conversations. Nobody wants to talk to me. Everybody's like, "Go sit down, do some work."
Did you watch Wings last night? No.
All right. Well, for those of you who are new to the podcast, looking for a podcast about The Mandalorian, thank you for listening through our constant ramblings on Wings.
You're assuming they haven't left.
I know. Somehow they're still around. I appreciate those of you who've hung around.
Yes.
A big tip of our cat to you, and for those of you who have not heard that before, we do that a lot in this pod.
Yeah,
to- and
that's
to-
kind of our thing.
Yep. And to the alien civilizations listening to this right now.
We are shooting this into space.
So let's get to it. Here it
Gonna
is.
catch up to the
All right.
Voyager soon.
The Mandalorian conversation. I think before we get into any specific details, what did it feel like watching a Star Wars TV series? What was going through your head? I said it after the end of the episode. I don't even remember anything that happened because there was just so much joy in my heart to watch an original Star Wars TV show and know that these 40 minutes that we saw were just the beginning, and I'm getting so much more over the next 8 weeks. I don't know. I'm ecstatic.
So the first thing I thought watching it was, is Chris's hand going to be on my knee the whole time?
Again, I'm sorry about that. I'm an easy scare, and I just need something to hold on to.
No, it was like, it snuck up on me in terms of what this actually meant for Star Wars. Because, as we said in the last pod, or maybe 2 pods ago, but anyway, there's been such a saturation of Star Wars in the last few years, which is very exciting, but it makes it so that, like, this has a different impact than this if this came out right after episode 3. But being with the droids, it really dawned on me, at least, like, whoa, this is the live action Star Wars show. And it's happening. That's what I was thinking. And then I had a lot of other thoughts that we'll get into.
Yeah, I think I guess the thing was it delivered in the sense of it was so exciting to have new Star Wars, and it reinforced for me all of the trappings of Star Wars, particularly the iconography of Star Wars is what this affirmed for me is the thing that draws me the most to Star Wars. I think I'm a very visual person. I'm an artist, and I think and obviously it's movies, it's visual storytelling, but that's the first thing. And it's like they chose a character who's known for his visible iconography, like the silhouette cuts, and I was like, this looks cool. I like looking at it. So I also and I would echo then what you guys have said, that it's like this has been a long time coming. This has been rumored. This has been myth for a long time, and so to live in that reality and be able to share with you guys was really cool.
My first thought was, how long do I keep my hand there? Do I move it? Is it weird if I move it too soon? I didn't know quite what to do there. But I think that for me, I love any time in Star Wars where you can break new story that's in between pieces of Star Wars. So it's like there's built-in question marks in every Star Wars movie and Star Wars show, and you want to know, you kind of want to know, what's this story like? What's this story like? And if they can do it in a way that's not just like exposition, which I believe this is, it's like a story that kind of reveals the universe, that fills in those gaps. And so I'm like super excited to see what they're going to do, especially in this time frame where I know we've had a little bit with like Rebels and a little bit with like that kind of thing, but it's not as visual and it's not as like tied to the actual world as this show is. So to see a live action Star Wars show, I'm elated. It's been on the brain forever.
Exploring more of the world. I mean, the show has little pieces in here that have given us the idea of what we've seen before. But I think the first thing I want to start with is, what was your favorite minor reference to something we knew before? And the thing that I think of first is just there was a Life Day mention. Mm-hmm. They mentioned Life Day in this episode, right, which really the holiday special has been buried. Yeah. And here we have a Life Day reference relatively early on. There were several others. We saw kind of what the anteater alien that early on in the episode. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. We had the door droid that gave him entrance in to see Werner Herzog's character. There were several touch points like that, but what was your favorite kind of minor bit there that referenced something else that we've already known?
So for me, this isn't quite a minor bit, but in terms of following that door droid thing, when he goes to meet Werner Herzog's character, and there's like 4 stormtroopers in there, I thought that was super evocative in terms of world building, because we know that the Empire has fallen at this point. Mm-hmm. So it was haunting to see people still being stormtroopers, because it means that there are like these underground sects that are keeping true to the Empire, which we also know probably leads to the rising of the First Order, that whole thing. So I thought that was a very matter-of-fact way to show that, where he goes in and they're stormtroopers. They're in old, like, dirty stormtrooper gear. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of... And Werner Herzog had... I guess this is the real thing. The small thing is he had a medal around his neck that had the Empire symbol on it. So I thought that was a really good piece of world building that was subtle-ish, if you don't know exactly what's going on, but it kind of was rewarding us for knowing.
And even the block of money also had the little emblem.
Yes.
The Empire emblem, and it's like their gold. It's like what they've melted down.
It was Nazi gold. I mean,
exactly. The imagery there was like just synonyms for each other.
And I think we should state right now, none of us are experts on Mandalorian lore. Sorry, gotta do it. Yeah. But I feel like there's a lot that's referenced to, and Beskar is what they use as the armor, and that's what the bit of cash or coin or whatever it was that he gave back to him was the same that he uses for his armor. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of references to, that's great to have it back within the clan or within the tribe.
Yeah.
And I think that's interesting because I just immediately there's a whole lot more to this story of the Mandalorian than we see, and it
Yeah.
whets the appetite for a whole lot more
Yeah.
to explore. But it was really interesting to watch that and be like, oh, okay, I don't know enough about this, and I'm excited to learn.
Yeah.
I also think, I also think, it's weird that we ended up on the topic of like money and credits, because that was what I was going to say was my favorite reference.
Oh, yeah.
I actually thought some of the like fan references for people like the Life Day stuff, like maybe I knew to be looking for it, or maybe it was just that stuff didn't resonate as much. But one thing I loved was that they dealt with the idea of like in an Imperial collapse, the money's not valued, and so like Imperial credits are devalued, and so he takes, and I can't remember what type of money, but he's given a different currency. Which was,
Don't they say they're like calamari?
Something like that.
Calamari.
Yeah,
I think
calamari.
that's what-
Yeah.
You know, that's a subtle reference to the Mon Calamari. But then we also see that he's paid.
Watto must be
separate
losing
from
his
credits
mind.
by this like Beskar, like
Yeah.
essentially the hardest currency there is, like pure gold. And so I just liked that whole world building, element. I liked the money. I liked that they also physicalized credits. I don't remember, honestly, if we've seen that maybe in something I'm just not remembering. But the idea of, it's very Old
That's a
West.
good point. I don't think we've ever
So, like,
seen credits.
You see in, if you watch, Deadwood or an old Western, it's like you go into the bar, you buy
bag.
some whiskey, and you plop down some gold coin or a little, your little satchel of money. And it's like that is what he's literally doing throughout the episode. He's paying everyone off in this underworld. So
It's interesting you said we do see a lot of the coin and the credits in Solo. Solo is the only other one that really has it in the middle. But
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Same.
Right,
Yes.
yes.
The
worst Star
thing
Wars
that
movie.
the thing that I liked a lot was the references to the holiday special, obviously Life Day, but his weapon, which we've talked about before, that has already been a reveal, and then just the imagery of him like shocking that beast that kind of jumps up from the water, because he does ride creatures, or Boba Fett rode creatures, and things like that, and has used that to shock. And then also the homing beacon was a big part of the holiday special. So I love it. I love it. They got me.
I don't think I didn't know that the homing beacon was a big part of the
believe it
holiday
is,
special.
yes.
Interesting. Well, I think then overall, I don't know if we want to just talk overall impressions of the show, because we talked about how it felt to watch a Star Wars series, but what did we think of the first episode? I know Ryan has thoughts, and you know what? When he ends this, he's going to say, I have spoken.
Yeah. Well, let me start off by saying that. So I thought it was thrilling to watch. I have to say up front, I thought that it was very good, and I enjoyed it a lot. I can't wait to continue.
Here comes the butt.
There's just listen, we can be critical here.
Of course we can. If anything, we have been critical on this podcast.
Here's something that I loved. The Mandalorian, our main character, was kind of, for the first 20 minutes or so, the first half essentially, this stoic character that we were expecting. This like man of few words kind of like archetype thing. And then as soon as he entered that like Mandalorian like clubhouse essentially, and then when he started interacting with the IG unit and he's like amongst his own, meaning bounty hunters or Mandalorians, he became much more vocal, and the character became much more like charming and well-rounded to me, which was surprising.
A lot more interesting.
Yes,
Yeah.
which was surprising and a pleasant surprise. A few thoughts I had. The end credits, it just said created by Jon Favreau, which seems so strange to me because it's like, I understand he created the show, and then it said based on Star Wars by George Lucas, but saying like created by one person and it's a whole world, like
especially when so much of that world's been built by the other person you're working with on the show.
So I found that strange. In terms of, here's just a few critiques. I think Dave Filoni knows Star Wars so well. He knows the world. I think as a director, he has a little bit to go. This is the first
something
live
to
action
be desired.
thing. Yeah, I think this is the first live action thing he's done, and I think that there were some things that were a little flat. It looked very television-y, which is fine. And that's my other point. And this is not a critique of the show. The show is a television show. Like, it should be a television show. However, I've read a lot online about people saying, like, it's so cinematic, things like that, blah, blah, blah. If anyone thinks that this is production value-wise to to the level of a feature Star Wars film, they are out of their minds. And like,
I agree with you for this
that's-
episode. For
Yes.
some reason I'm hopeful that it gets beyond that.
I
going
honestly,
forward.
to me, it's a point of like charm because
Yeah.
I don't need everything to be a Star Wars movie. I go to
Yeah.
Star Wars movies for that.
Well,
So to see a Star
Yeah.
Wars TV show, there was actually something charming about
you
it.
can tell in like there's elements of like just ghost towns and just like the way things are just shallowly focused. It's usually a trick that you're masking.
Sure.
You're masking stuff, and there's a lot of that. And I do agree. I think the episode was well directed. I think everyone like acting was great. Everyone had motivations. Everyone was. But I think what you kind of lose. There was this kind of almost like film school aspect of cool shots in it. And so there's a lot of cool shots, and that's great. But I feel like that's kind of a rookie move. Like it's like a jazz musician. Sometimes you have to let the silent beats play through rather than loading it up.
Well, I also think that if this is what the show looks like, I'm fine with that because
Yeah.
I found it like charming. There was things, everything was functional. There was nothing that was bad or anything. But if the show is striving to look like a Star Wars television show, I'm fine with that. But if people are doing this thing where they're saying that it's Star Wars movies on television, it's like no, like that's not what it is. That's not what it should be. We have the Star Wars movies for that reason. And I think that I think that there were parts that were a little flat, but I found it just visually flat. But I found that like somewhat charming, where I was
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
it reminded me of like Firefly or something
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah, there's definitely
You
a
know?
lot of that.
There's
Yeah.
two scenes that really stood out to me that were minor scenes, but they really felt flat. And maybe it's because you're used to watching Star Wars being shot by J.J. Abrams or by Ryan Johnson.
Yeah,
or
I'm
the
curious
directors
if we
that
have
we're
the
thinking of.
same one. So go ahead.
It's him in the cockpit.
Exactly.
Yes,
That's exactly what I was
sitting.
thinking.
I was sitting there and I'm like, there's something just off about this. It's
Yeah.
because it felt like either it wasn't. I don't know that it needed to be cut more quickly.
Yeah.
but we were just kind of sitting on the two shots of those characters, and there wasn't a whole lot there
And
in
we
the
could see-
screen.
there was something strange where we could see the guy's reflection in the cockpit
That's-
window,
Yeah.
that's
and we
the-
couldn't see the star field
that-
behind him.
that's
It was
like-
very
There was
Yeah.
no
Strange.
Starfield, which is weird.
That's the mark of a television show, is that there is a conversation shot in a vehicle. And that's like that's
which
how
is
you
also-
because it bides time and it's inexpensive.
To be clear, like that is one of the things. I read an article. I wish I could attribute it. I can't remember, but people were saying that everybody keeps saying that television is like it's like movie quality now, and to me that's like a false equivalence because equating quality of two mediums is kind of like unfair. So what they're talking about is production value, but the form of television is inherently different. It is more dialogue focused. You have to move the story forward in a different
Totally.
way. So it's more plot forward that way. So when you do have the Mandalorian sitting there in the cockpit with his bounty, the guy's kind of talking, played by Horatio Sands, which is very cool. It is just two characters sitting in a vehicle, and that's fine. But
Which-
I think it's weird that a lot of the critics of this have been effusive about how it looks like the old movies and things like that, when it's like, allow it to be something new.
Yeah.
You know, I think it feels like Dave Filoni, in as much as like it feels like an animation director making a live action thing where he was like, the camera's going to be here and we're going to watch the characters do this. It may also be that his mentor on this was Jon Favreau, the least visually interesting director on the planet. So, but I actually found that to be a strength of it because it distinguishes it from just being another, Star Wars.
I think the Iron Man montage, though, I know Favreau didn't direct this, but I think the Iron Man montage in Iron Man is visually interesting and a very well put together sequence.
I thought you were talking about how there was the moment in this episode where it
that's
was
why
like
I'm bringing it up. That's why I'm bringing it up. So it's like a little homage to Iron Man in that regard, where he's forging the thing because it's done in the same kind of cadence.
I'm not saying he's not bad, that he's not good at constructing movies. I just said that he's.
I thought it was visually interesting. Is what I was
Well,
saying.
I would say the second scene that I was talking about was Grief Karga, where it's the first time that it's him and Carl Weathers that together felt the same way.
Sure.
And but I agree with you. It didn't to me make me feel like, oh, this is awful. It just stood out to me as not having the quality of what I was expecting from a regular Star Wars. But that's not bad. That like this is a different kind of storytelling, as you said. We've never seen a story that needed to play out over 8 hours.
Right.
That wasn't 8 2-hour movies
Right,
that were
right.
telling a whole story. But so there's a little bit more time and a little bit more dialogue and more scenes like that we're going to have to, well, not have to, but that we will experience.
And when the writing's good, which I thought it really was, I mean, it's enjoyable to
works.
watch.
Oh, yeah.
On the notes sort of that we're talking about now in terms of like how cinematic it is versus, you know, like sort of, I guess the things that I felt were on that same note, when people are talking about, and this kind of came up during Rogue One too, how much it felt like it was, it's taking you back. It feels like Star Wars, or as some people call it, A New Hope. You know,
or as
like,
Disney Plus calls it.
You know, it feels like the, you know, the movie from the 70s, the movies from the 80s. I did not feel that. This to me feels very much like a piece of 2019. It also feels like it's very much set in a different part of the galaxy. We were sort of talking off air via text chain. I mean, this is, or maybe I listened to your guys' episode. Maybe this was you guys talking last week. I don't know. It's a blur.
Wow.
But like about the level of violence, it's paced differently. It doesn't feel like the movie from the 70s. It doesn't look like the movie from the 70s. The characters don't even seem to talk or act like the characters from the 70s. What's similar is there's that cool Macquarie-based iconography and design. I think one thing that really helps is, and this may be also due to some limitations of making something on TV, you're not seeing digitally assisted prosthetics. It's like the characters who are in, like there's aliens who are like humanoid in form with like rubber masks that are well painted, and their mouths move in like ups and downs and puppetry, and that's awesome.
Yeah,
and
that harkens back to like Star Trek-ish kind of like.
Honestly, a lot of it, some of it reminded me of not the new one, although that's phenomenal. It reminded me of like the Dark Crystal, like these old Henson things. There was that charm about it where it was, especially the Nick Nolte character, which I know had CGI involved.
Did he?
I have to only guess.
I think on the eyes, but other than that,
I have to imagine.
I thought the eyes looked
I'm
great.
really bad at picking that out.
Yes,
but I
Chris thought the children of Thanos were real.
right,
9 feet tall aliens, 9 feet tall blue aliens.
They're in costumes.
The
mediocre CGI.
There, the last sort of thing. I'm blanking on it now. So go on, Mike. You have something to say.
I just want to go back to talking about directors. Is that and even the way this is sparsed out, we said 15 million per episode is what it was estimated at.
Wow.
I'm wondering if that is like, we divided the total number by 8 and got, because I don't think this first one was $15 million. It didn't feel like it.
I have a feeling how many episodes are there? 8? I have a feeling like episodes 6 and 7
will be
20 apiece, 25.
Yeah.
But I really...
Which ones did Favreau direct? Those are the ones that are going to have the most money.
He actually, I don't think he's directed a single one.
Oh, really? None of them? Oh, wow.
But I do, as we're talking about it more, and I'm kind of like... Because we literally watched it like 10 minutes ago. I'm parsing through my feelings. I think that is something that actually excites me about this, because I do want a Star Wars television show.
Yeah.
And it's fine with me if that is not... Again, TV and film are two different things. If this feels like a television show, great. I've never had a Star Wars television show. And another thing is, Dave Filoni really has a bead on pacing out moments in an episode. And like, I think that's what comes, like, that's where like his animation background comes in. Mm-hmm. There were a lot of like very like classical comedic beats that just like land in this. There's that, I'm thinking of that one shot where they both look at the like bazooka cannon to open the door.
Yeah.
And it's like, or IG-11 shooting up and then someone falling behind it. Like they're just like very subtle things that it's just like, that's just good pacing.
That's timing you get working 10 years on a cartoon.
Exactly. Knowing that like we have to get the timing right. We can't just do another take. Like we have to storyboard this out and get it right.
Yeah.
And I think that really comes through. And any kind of like quote unquote shortcomings he may have in terms of visual, like just literally framing and like staging, he can learn that. In 2 episodes he might have that,
because I think he directs episode 4 or 5.
So I would almost bet money that we see a improvement on that, but
which is really exciting to kind of witness that, because we know he's such a talented guy, and to know that we're going to watch kind of the development of what will likely be a future feature Star Wars film director. I would be surprised if he doesn't.
And he certainly will go on with this show.
Oh yeah.
So that'll only get better. I mean,
Yeah.
like we know that he's great
Well,
at telling long form Star Wars.
How do we think
stories.
this is going to? I mean, I would imagine that eventually this is going to become Filoni's show. I don't think
Yeah.
Favreau's hanging around for 6 seasons in a movie.
Yeah, no, I would I would think that Filoni will be show running. So
Yeah.
it's like that's exciting because he clearly knows how to tell
Which
long
probably it's just until he's done with Clone Wars, the final season of Clone Wars,
Right.
and then maybe that
He'll take
transition
off
will
his
happen.
Clone Wars cowboy hat and he'll put on his Mandalorian cowboy hat.
Before we get too deep in the Filoni conversation, I did want to talk about his roots in Pittsburgh and that article. We'll talk about that another time. But let's go around and just favorite moment. Hit me with your favorite moment from the episode. Chris, start with you.
Favorite moment? I think the introduction of IG-88 was great. It's classic.
IG-11.
11.
1-1, 88.
Taika.
So, yeah. It's just classic droid action, like where the droid comes in, they're kind of silly, they're kind of dumb, they're mechanical. Also, they're playing on that "we don't serve them here" theme. Like Mandalorian is clearly on the side of I don't like droids, they creep me out. And now he's discovering they're not that bad. So that's great. We're seeing someone learn something.
Well, for a couple minutes.
For a moment.
He'll be back.
A beat.
I think so.
He made an enemy in him, I'm sure.
Man, I'm torn, and this ties into. I did remember what I was going to say earlier. I'm going to go with my favorite. My favorite beat or moment in the show was when they from when they introduced, not Gary Busey,
Herzog?
not Gary Busey,
Nick Nolte?
Nick Nolte's character.
I mean,
We're going to do this one. We're going to go through and we're going to say the name of the character or the actor right
So
once.
Nick Nolte's character, who's this, this native species from a planet, and sort
Ugnaught, I believe, right?
they're they're sort of meet cute in his like home. There's like a brief training montage that is clearly just riffing on like westerns
breaking a
and
horse.
So it's just
Rocky,
a funny moment.
Yeah.
and the Rocky. It's like it's cut very comedically, and I think that it's a great character. And what this ties in is I think there are clear moments where you can distinguish the really, really great performers in this elevate the show.
Yeah.
Nolte.
I think Nick Nolte is one. I think Nick Nolte literally delivers like a great
I thought I was
performance.
shocked.
I love
and,
it.
The
and
scene-
then I
He's
think
great, but it was
and I
just
think
like-
obviously Werner
The
Herzog.
scene where he sends him off, that's when the show like locked in for me, when they're both standing on top of the mountain ready to perform the heist or whatever. Like that to me locked it in. I was like, all right, we've got a puppet like character talking to a guy in a mask. I'm like, we're back in Star Wars.
It had that feeling of, and when I say the Dark Crystal, I'm trying to pinpoint what I mean, but it had that feeling of like truly otherworldly.
Yeah.
Like we are elsewhere. You know, like it's like we've been in Star Wars cantinas and things like that, but seeing them stand on like a mountaintop with a new creature that we've never seen before who has like a very defined personality had a feeling of like, oh, like we are in a different world. And that's
Well, and the sentiment that he had about this planet has been ravaged by these people. We haven't had peace since they arrived was a beautiful moment to me in the episode. Maybe one of my favorite parts of it, just that way that he expressed it and the way they wrote that scene. But it is classic Western.
It's classic Western.
And even them being on the hill,
sure.
looking down on it all.
It's also classic Filoni too. Like the again going back to like a lot of the episodes of Clone Wars. You have a character who has a little more going on under the surface, and everybody's got that like edge of goodness to them, where it's like the reason he's helping the Mandalorian is like for his people, but also he's like, I don't want you here either, kind of a thing. It was delightful. I thought Nolte's beats were that was my favorite
great.
parts of the episode.
My favorite moment was when IG-11 and the Mandalorian are stuck behind the pillar. I thought that their interplay was really funny.
Yeah.
I thought it was a very exciting moment, and I just thought the whole bit about the self-destruct was like really good, and
It was really good.
To me, that's when the show, it's coming right off of Nick Nolte. That's when the Mandalorian character kind of came alive to me, where I was like, oh, this is someone that I want to follow.
He's got a personality.
Because I really did, and in the first 20 minutes, and even in all the promotional stuff, I wouldn't say fear, but I was just like, okay, it's just going to be this dude who like doesn't talk, he kind of mumbles, and like people speak at him and he stares at them until they give the answer that he wants.
And everyone's gonna be like, wow, that's such badass.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
cool.
And like in the first few minutes that's what they gave,
Yeah.
but once we kind of saw him kind of vulnerable, not really knowing what to do, I thought that kind of added a layer to him that was enough to keep me going.
He's the one who wants to make a plan to go in, which is kind of antithetical to the character who's the tough, no nonsense, like
Yeah.
badass.
Yeah.
Normally
Don't tell
they're the
me
ones
what
who
to
say,
do.
Yeah.
plan, stuff your plan. We're going in.
Or he just wouldn't do anything. He wouldn't say anything,
Right.
and then he'd just kill
But-
everybody
yeah.
and be in.
But that I agree, Ryan. It's Butch and Sundance.
Yeah.
They actually
Right.
get some of that chemistry.
Well, then you have the chain gun there too. That's like right pulled out of the Wild Bunch. Like,
Yeah.
it's like the whole scene is just like a complete homage.
Well, he's like, we're just gonna blast our way out of here. I mean, that's a moment in it with
Butch.
him.
Yeah.
Mike, what about you?
Oddly enough, I didn't expect this, and maybe it's just because the entire scene was unexpected to me. I had heard rumors that there was a baby, and I never thought for a moment that we'd have the species of
Yeah.
Yoda.
Which is crazy.
And it was, I don't know that it's actually the best part of the episode, but it really just surprised me so much and has me so intrigued. And are we going to learn more now about what Yoda's species is? Are we going to find out that this is a descendant of Yoda related to
Right.
what is going to
Yeah,
happen?
is it-
There's also, we have not gotten any indication that the Force is involved in The Mandalorian. The Mandalorian is a show we think is just about bounty hunting. But now we have a young species of Yoda. I don't know how else to describe it at this point because we don't know anything else.
Yoda baby.
Baby, who's
Huda
50 years
baby.
old.
Yoda baby.
Which is what it
baby.
says the first 100 years.
Not the mama, Yoda baby.
But so do we have 200 years as a toddler? Is that what we're finding out about what happens with this species?
Well, it would make sense that the Empire is after them to eradicate any kind of Jedi.
Oh, totally.
Right?
Well, but then exactly.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, I would think they would. They're going to eradicate any other Jedi because they're maybe well aware of what Luke Skywalker did.
Right,
At the end of Return of the Jedi, but they don't want to see any of the rise.
They're still hunting Jedi.
So does that put like Yoda at like around 18 when he was like 900 years
900
old?
years old.
It's like 50. If 50 is still a baby.
But in their lifespan, though, they die at their version of 18.
Ooh.
whatever it is.
Whoa, that's
Dark.
I have to say, speaking on that, also I would say my second favorite moment is the Mandalorian reaching out his finger
Yeah,
for
absolutely.
the baby, because it was very funny,
Yep.
Yeah.
very unexpected, and I was like, oh, that's not who I thought the
Right.
character
No.
was, and that
It's such personality.
it was like this very. It just really threw me for a loop in terms of who the character may be.
Well, and also
Yeah.
that he would take out IG-11. He
Yeah.
tried to
Right.
negotiate with him, and then he takes him out. And I
got-
love.
Yeah, because I had also heard that there was a baby, and I
Yeah.
was imagining it would be
Yeah.
this kind of thing where he was like,
Yeah.
oh, like, what do I do?
Yeah.
I don't
Children
want to
of
have
Men
this
types-
baby.
yeah, yeah.
Or
I
just
mean,
like
we
this
might
kind
still
of,
get some of that. but-
Yeah.
Yeah, but like up front, I was expecting more of this, like,
Which-
he wants to get rid of the baby, but he feels kind of conflicted because
Yeah.
it's cute, like, whatever
Yeah.
it is. But it was like he immediately was like, no, we're not gonna, like, murder the baby.
Yeah.
Well, and think about the leap that they made with Star Wars here. And I wonder if somebody was, the story group or Dave Filoni was making the push. No, it's not a human baby. We're not going to have everybody
Yeah.
try to relate to this as a human family.
Yeah.
Right.
To go with an alien species that is very cute.
Yeah.
I think is
Yeah.
a
It's
great.
flat out Green
Yeah.
Gizmo.
Yeah, but it really is. But it's just a nice call because I feel like it's just unexpected and a new
was-
way for them to go with the story.
Exactly.
But I love. Maybe I'm just a sucker for it, but I love a fake blaster moment or a fake shot where you think the shot
Yeah.
has gone one way and it turns out it's the other.
And
I
then-
It
love
always works. It's always effective. Even even intellectually knowing what happened, like you still are engaged, like
Yeah.
cinematically
Yeah.
with those moments. Also, I mean, I think the whole the setup, is that Werner Herzog can only give him limited information about the target. Werner Herzog is the person who hires him for the job. And what we know is we know a location and we know that the target is 50 years old. And so it's such a great setup. Like you initially, when you see that it's a small pod, that it's likely a baby,
Yeah.
you think, oh, Werner Herzog's a liar.
Yeah.
But the reveal of a way that it actually makes sense for a 50-year-old to still be an infant or a baby, it's like it's great. They get to have their cake and eat it too. It works for the reveal. Like it was fun, I thought.
It's so much to also ponder on because when they first said a 50-year-old, I thought, oh, all right, well, who from the canon would be 50-year-olds at this time?
They did pull a fast one on. I mean, like that was completely unexpected.
But then also think, at 50 years old, even though the galaxy is so much older than we know it to be in the movies we've seen, but we imagine that everyone still ages and 50 years old for a human year is still the same.
Right. So
So 50 years old, this Yoda baby was around when Yoda was still alive. Because obviously he died in Return of the Jedi.
Which that whole... I also like that with the finger touch. It's almost like a little bit of an ET call out. It's just the finger touch. Which we do know, Ryan, that Yoda calls the ET planet home, or ET calls the Yoda planet home. Ugh. So I'm just saying.
You mean
from the fan fiction that you wrote? God. Is that what you're referencing?
No,
the Halloween
I'm just
scene?
telling the Halloween.
Oh yeah.
Shall we replay that moment? No,
we've already done that once on the pod.
I'm just kidding.
I don't know. Dig back if you're listening. If you're new to the pod, I don't know. Go back like 65 episodes ago when this came up.
Just to be safe, listen to them all.
Yeah, do it all, and then listen to them again backwards.
It was so surprising to see. First off, there's very little known about Yoda's species. There is another Yoda-like creature called Yaddle that sits on the Jedi Council.
In episode 1? Or was it episode 2 or 3?
I don't even know. One of those. And to see...
boy, we are a Star Wars podcast, believe it or not, people.
We'll get there. But to see another Yoda it's a pretty bold move, I would think, though, because that's like...
It's a big swing.
Look visually, that's Yoda so defined that I would think they'd be very hesitant to introduce anything that would look near Yoda.
Well, and also it's a Yoda baby who is not around other of the species. Yeah. Is it going to learn how to speak like Yoda, or is it going to learn how to speak like any other?
This is a challenge, actually. I think, though, it's funny, but I do think like that's a challenge that we're never going to get the answer unless this series moves beyond Pedro Pascal's Mandalorian. If this show goes 6 seasons in a movie and it takes place over 10 years of this man's life, that baby's still a baby. It's still the same age. That's nothing in their life. So I think this is going to be the season 1 arc or a chunk of the season 1 arc, and I think it probably has to get resolved just because
that's fair
for us to get more info on. Now, here's where it could come up. We may see this character in Rise of Skywalker, which would be, as a tween.
Right.
I thought a little bit that we were maybe going to see Rey as a baby. As we were closing in on that shot, I was like, "Ooh, is this going to show us
interesting?
Rey?"
Baby Rey.
And,
That's
and
little baby with 3 ponytails. Unless they put a little helmet on the baby, and we find out that the baby is the true Mandalorian.
Or it could be that Rey goes back in time and plants the baby there.
Oh,
maybe
in
Yoda,
part 3 of episode 9.
Exactly.
Maybe Yoda was the baby's looper. We can go through with it.
There is another was referring to this baby.
There you go. There is another.
Do Yodas are Yodas?
Why didn't he
is
ever
Yoda
say
Phoenix like?
That's what I thought.
Yeah, we don't know.
Is that I think you said that. That's another. There's a question of like, could we see something interesting and like really radical that it's regenerative or something?
I do want to say, everybody's saying how this feels like the original trilogy.
It doesn't.
Which I disagree with.
I agree with
I'm
you.
glad that
Yeah, it doesn't need to be. It doesn't have to
Also, it doesn't take place during the original trilogy, so like
No.
stop. It should feel more like the new trilogy.
Yeah.
On the note of how it feels, I think a big part of it is one of my other favorite elements that I don't know we'd get to otherwise. The music is
it's
awesome,
phenomenal.
and it's a big departure from John Williams in any way, shape, or form. And I think they were really smart to do that because if you do small screen Williams, it's going to sound like a knockoff. There's like 2 guys who can do anything. Giacchino, and I don't know who else I have, but like who can do that.
And none of us talk enough about how great the score was for Rogue One, and he had to pull that together in a second because he was given that job last minute. Anyway, sorry.
So this gives the show such a mood, such an identity, such a feeling throughout, and I found myself frequently I'm going to listen to it. If I don't know if it's out, I'm going to try and listen to it at work tomorrow. Like the scoring,
it is available.
It's
It's
I
very
love
cool.
it. I
It's very
really
good.
like it. I like that it's different.
Yeah.
And I think it contributes to that feel of being like, yeah, we're in a different adjacent thing. And nobody's going to mistake this for not Star Wars.
Yeah.
But also, like, get out of here with that.
If you're gonna make a Star Wars show, make it. This is what else are we doing here?
Yeah.
If we're just making the same stuff over and
Yeah.
over again, it takes place in
It's
the world.
great.
It feels like
Well-
Star Wars, but different. And it's like
It
great.
also has that kind of soundtrack that, and I mean this in a good way, that's like, sometimes I think Star Wars will kind of round its edges a little too much to cater to mass audiences. Like, make it a little bit like one of these like sci-fi shows that you see, that has that kind of soundtrack and that weirdness.
Please put a barrier of entry so I could feel special.
Right, exactly. Like, I don't mind a little bit of a kind of a curve where people are like, "This isn't for me. This is too weird."
Give me something to overlook.
Keep Star Wars weird, people.
Yeah,
the Star Trek and Firefly comparisons are great. And, like, I think... I wouldn't be surprised if we see something very reminiscent, that's like Battlestar-esque. Like, all these shows that have obviously, excluding Star Trek, the other shows owe so much to Star Wars. And it's interesting to see the sort of Ouroboros coming back and Snake eating its own tail of, like, now they're influencing the culture that influenced them and spawned them. And Favreau, Filoni, whoever is diving in, they've decided that the Mandalorian is clearly like, this is the Western arm of, like, when Lucas was inspired by Westerns. I would love to see an equally strong, equally departive look on the Obi-Wan series that's diving into the samurai influences.
Yeah.
And they just like, if we have just two wildly different takes of a similar period,
that's
I
phenomenal.
couldn't be more excited, and I
I
think
do
there's
have
room
this
for
fear
it.
of people being like, Star Wars is a Western, and then just making everything a Western.
No, I think
I
there's.
hope not.
I think there's an. Go back to and now obviously Kurosawa was influenced by and deeply influenced Western cinema, but like go back to like. Go back to samurai movies. Go back to like silent.
I mean, those were the
quiet,
primary influence.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
like
So-
Hidden Fortress and Throne
Yeah.
of Blood were the influences.
Yeah,
And-
and Jimbo, and
And so the fact that you've got your Bush and Sundance over here with Mandalorian,
Yeah.
I'd love to see the other side of the coin.
What is the genre of a loner hermit who doesn't do anything and barely speaks? Because that's what we want in the Obi-Wan series. And what's the genre referencing? We got to figure that out. I'm sure there's some film series that's about a depressed loner, right?
I mean, there's so many. There's so many samurai movies just about the old forgotten samurai. That's
Okay, well, that's
wandering-
perfect. Yeah.
That's wandering from village to village. Like Zatoichi, the blind samurai, is like rooted in that.
I mean, yeah, they could. I mean, there's
Yeah.
also
I think they
there's
said
a
the
chance
Obi-Wan
for like a
series will
lone.
be mostly based on the Joker. movie.
There's
Some
like a
people
lone wolf
think-
and cub option if they decide to bring Luke back into his life that
Yeah.
they could totally do. Just like have Obi-Wan wandering around with his baby for a while.
And you know what? Some
You
people
know, and
think it's a
like-
tragedy, but I think it's a comedy. Is that the Joker movie? Did they say that?
is that right? I have no idea. I
don't
haven't
know.
seen it.
I'm sure they do.
The Mandalorian's backstory, we had hints. We had a moment in when you talked about he went down to the Mandalorian whatever area. I was watching. I was like, "This is Mandalore Cave." Is
Yeah,
it a
that's-
cave?
Oh, very
so
interesting.
such
The
a,
Mandalorian
such a big
basement?
surprise.
It's really
I had
cool.
no expectation
Yeah.
of seeing any other
No, I thought he
Mandalorian
was-
in this
I thought he was
series.
a lone wolf. Yeah.
But then I love seeing the kids running around with helmets on.
Yeah.
Clearly they have to resize those helmets as they grow.
That's why
it's
they're
fun
going to
thing
get a
think
helmet
about.
for with little ear holes.
What if they're all
Little green ear holes.
Yeah, I was gonna say, what if they're all little Yodas in those helmets?
But he
I'm
talks,
telling you, don't feed that Yoda after midnight.
I never understood that. What time can you
God.
stop
No,
feeding them
okay.
water?
Look,
Yeah.
it's not Eastern
God,
Standard.
What if you're on a plane?
What is the end time though? Is it in the
International waters. What are you going to
Yeah.
do?
Chris,
What are you
you
gonna
know
do?
it is
You're in the
funny.
water, so you got
You're the
problems
first
there.
person to bring this up. I don't know.
morning? Really?
No, they talk about it in the sequel to that movie.
Oh, they do. I've never seen the sequel.
Wait, you've never seen the sequel?
No.
Oh, the
It's better.
sequel is better.
What's it called?
It's way
Gremlins
better.
2.
Wait, you haven't even seen it. Have you seen the Keen's Peele
The sequel's
sketch?
called Sex Lies and Videotape.
No,
Gremlins 2, Sex Lies and
oh,
Videotape.
I didn't know that.
Have you seen the Key and Peele sketch?
No.
Oh, it's great. It's about pitching the movie Gremlins 2
Oh.
and just making it crazier and crazier and crazier.
That
than
was
Gremlins 1.
insane.
It's one
That's
of the
hilarious.
There's a
craziest and most
sequel to
awesome movies.
Gremlins. What's it called?
This is a good-
Pulp Fiction.
But But we learn about his family, or that he had a family, and it's just very brief shots as they're reforming his armor out of the credit that he got.
In a very cheesily edited
Which is
montage.
I know.
Oh,
I thought
that was-
I know.
I liked it.
I liked it a
I liked
lot.
how cheesy it was.
I
I
like
didn't
that.
like how cheesy it was. Didn't like that it was there. Didn't
Wow.
like seeing it. This was like the only part I didn't like. Of
I
that.
didn't
I
hate
liked that they were. I liked the idea that they were putting forth visually, though I don't know if it was completely successful.
Yeah.
That the Mandalorian culture is so strong and so associated with that steel and with the armor
Yeah.
that
And-
every time they
well,
forged it,
yeah.
that he was seeing a piece of his past.
Yeah.
Which was, I don't, again, know the lore of Mandalore.
Me
but
either.
But
I believe there's a moment where the Empire comes in and takes over
Yeah.
the planet.
Yes.
Right.
And I think that's what that scene is referencing.
I feel that with that scene that it was, it did feel differently and kind of cheesy, but I think it's like hearkening to the fanfare, and they show the interspersed cuts of his past, but I think it's supposed to be very like literal and guttural and like
Yeah.
showing almost like in Lord of the Rings when they show like the dwarves like smashing the rings. Like I think it's calling back to that era, and that's why it felt a little out of place, because it's like they're trying to rebuild their past from this. I think it's cool and empowering that they're taking the money that the Empire stole from them, using it to build armor only to kill the Empire again.
I really liked.
Love it.
I
Yeah.
liked I liked this underground world. I liked the forge. I liked that they hand forge their armor.
Yeah.
So, like when you
Yeah.
wouldn't assume that that's how it's done in this culture. I guess they used a machine. It was both
press.
handmade
It's a
and
press,
machined, which
yeah.
was cool. What I didn't like was the flashback elements, and I think it has to do. Ryan, I actually like your read of it. The idea of the imprint of the armor calling back his culture because of the strong association. That's beautiful. What I didn't like is like, again, it's too tropey. It's the
execution was okay.
He's an orphan.
Yeah.
No kidding. Like every other hero like this, a wayward son. Like, wouldn't it be more surprising and more cool if it was revealed that like he was doing this because he was caring for his parents and his own family and had like deep, like I don't know.
Or
just,
if he like went back, there's an episode or season 3 where he like goes back home and his
Yeah.
parents are like, "Oh, Bubba."
also surprising.
They're
I'm-
like super supportive.
I'm here for it. But I don't know. Just I think the eye roll for me was literally I have seen that exact montage. I
Yeah.
have seen that sound editing, and I've seen the story of his parents were killed, so that's why he does what he does, and why is it like it's like.
Are you
Yeah,
telling me
that
you're
kinda-
not? Wait, did you tell me not a fan of Batman's origin story? Or
There it is.
I do like that it. I felt it in some ways echoed what we learned in Skyfall about the deaths of.
That's also there. It is.
Andrew.
But that's also that is a trope of Western movies, though.
Andrew
The idea-
Bond and something Delacroix Bond. I can't remember
You
his
could
mom's
literally-
first
you could
name.
You know,
literally say any two names.
the
and
Hackett
agree with
brothers lost their mother and their father at different times, but there's an origin
Plane
story.
crashes? That's wild.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be able to work in that business.
Sam, you went through it. I think we've heard your least favorite moment. I want to just quickly touch on maybe the thing that didn't work for all of us. My least favorite moment, and I think this is something that really didn't work for me in The Force Awakens as well. I don't like when the first bit of dialogue is alien language. It feels off to me because I'm trying to get into it, and then I hear an actor speaking in a different language where it just pulls me out because I know they had to work really hard to get that. Like,
It
we
pulled me
see-
out in this for
yeah,
sure.
We see Ray for the first time, and Ray goes, what is it?
Torama Parkwa.
There you go. Thank you. I was trying to get to it, and Chris had it ready for me. Woo, love it.
We got to start doing this as a video podcast.
But I think the reason why I always feel
I
that
want
way.
to be clear. That's not the first line of the movie, though.
No. Oh, Siri is very much interested in you repeating that, Chris.
Torama Parkwa. She's
Neither does Tito.
Tito. She says
No.
it with like a different accent too.
But it's not the first.
That's just Tito.
That's just Tito.
But you're right. It's not the first
Yeah.
bit of dialogue in the movie. But
it's
I had in
her
my
introduction,
mind,
yeah.
I was so looking forward to seeing what this new lead character was going to do.
Yeah.
For her to start in a different language, it just kind of makes me go, I don't know.
Yeah.
And we started this with someone in a different language, and he wasn't bad, but that for me, and I don't think that's that bad. It doesn't ruin anything for it. That was my least favorite part.
Yeah. I think for me, it also comes at the beginning. And I'll pick on it visually. Just the in video games, they add a lot of fog. It means they're hiding stuff. The kind of like the snowy, bland shot. It was very bland looking. Everything looked very like just dull.
Yeah.
And I think I like the idea of those things pulling up, but I just not a fan of that shot, like that kind of iconography of just like a desert lake with just gray around it, because it looked just like boring.
It was cool though when the speeders did pop out of the gray and then pop back in. I like that.
It's a neat idea, but I just made me uncomfortable.
Yeah.
I like the ice. I would just jump in. I did feel like the ice was a little new. It wasn't Hoth. It wasn't a snow planet. It was like, once again, another like environmental space to be in. This felt like it could have very easily been a desert.
Yeah,
a little bit. It might be box ticking, but I agree with you that visually it maybe was a little
flat,
weaker.
yeah.
But I thought it was cool. I thought it was cool.
I didn't like how toxic some of the fan base got.
Oh boy.
You know, no, I didn't love that he chopped a dude in half in the first 5 minutes of the show.
I think he thought he could have gotten away.
Yeah, I don't even mind that he did it.
No,
he didn't.
I thought the pacing. Speaking of pacing, I thought the pacing of that it was better in the trailers.
Yeah.
Like,
no, I agree. Yeah.
And like to be fair, trailers are trailers, so it's like maybe we need to see. But it just like it felt like 4 beats too long, where he was like pulling him. The guy, like it just.
Then we saw the same scene twice. Like then they showed with the credit thing again. Like there was it's like they showed the same. Action.
It also felt like that scene felt like, I'm sure it was one of the earliest scenes that was written. I'm sure it was written with the intent of this is going to be.
We're going to show this at Comic-Con.
This is the introduction of this character, of this show, of this series, of what we're doing.
What are you
of the
saying?
Tone.
This is the most Favreau of all the scenes.
It's a little bit. It's a little bit overwritten. It's a little bit clunky, and it feels like it's a little bit of like forcing a statement. It's like it's a statement piece and the show gets better. I don't know what to call it. I keep calling it. It's the Butch and Sundance moment where they're pinned down.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That scene is so much better and hits the tone that it almost. It feels like that's where it's like, oh, this is what the show wants to be.
Yeah.
And that opening scene is what
it wasn't earned
is
yet.
how you kind of got there. You had to work through that, but you also were like, it's a great moment. It's going to kick off the show. And it feels like it.
The show is just kind of slow to start, but that's all right. They give us the goods later.
Real quickly, anything that we have not talked about that you really loved? I kind of love that IG-11 felt a little stop motion to me. Just the way that he moved.
The movement was really
it was really cool.
It was very clever.
Very cool how he moved around killing people, too.
Yeah, I was excited to see how his face was going to move and react to stuff. And, like, were those his eyes? Is that his eyes? Like, I kind of like that.
I'm really curious about this idea of bounty droids, because we haven't established that, like, droids... They haven't established, apart from L3, who touches on this in Solo, but this idea of like autonomous droids, like does he have an apartment? You know, what is he?
Yeah.
What does he do with the money?
No, but there was some reference to if he was killed, it was like his owners wanted him to self-destruct because he couldn't be captured.
Is that what he's saying? That
I thought that's
owners,
what he said. He may not have said owners, but someone wouldn't allow him to be captured.
I'm 100% for droid liberation and autonomy. Like, I think that
we are on this podcast.
Droids are fully sentient and should have their own apartments, but I am unclear in the world how that works.
In Brooklyn or Manhattan?
Oh, yeah.
I'd say on that opening scene, the language note, I've read so much about it, so I'm spoiled. I don't love subtitles in Star Wars. Which is like, it goes back to the Han Greedo scene, but also it's like that scene didn't actually need it, because literally after the guy says you spilled my drink twice in another language, the bartender says he says you spilled his drink, and it's like, this was never meant to be subbed. Don't sub it. Like it. So that like was a small annoyance to me about that specific scene.
I don't know what keep the alien language, just don't subtitle it.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
I don't know what you mean. I really need to know what majunki means.
No, it feels weird, and it feels like, who is this for? You know, like, we get what's going on. And in fact, you could have tightened up that scene, because you wouldn't have needed a full conversation
Yeah,
between
that's
those guys.
exactly that's
you
what
know?
I mean. They showed the same thing 2 times. Like we get that he's angry. We get
I don't know. I mean, Star Wars is for kids, and I think sometimes kids
Yeah.
would just be really confused, and
Yeah,
especially in this day
He
and
just
age.
chopped a man in half.
yeah.
Yeah. It's not for kids?
I like the return of the land speeders. I thought that was great,
Yeah.
and I like that he didn't. Again, we've established that we mentioned that the Mandalorian has at least some level of mistrust of droids. I think possibly because maybe he's seen them corrupted by the Empire. Maybe that's a reason, you know. But I like that it's like the self-driving speeder that's got a droid
that one
pilot.
Looked so sad.
He like didn't.
he was like baked in.
He didn't take it, but it was great to see both. It was
Yeah.
great to see the classic. You know,
The sound
speeder tech.
design was so great on that
Yeah.
moment,
Yeah.
though. It made me
Yeah.
like the light hum of the speeder
Yeah.
and the R2 unit.
Yeah, they
or
they
astromech
definitely
droid. Yeah.
put some of those sound effects in, especially the sound of the carbonite freeze. We didn't even talk about that.
Yeah.
Oh,
That was so cool. Like it's so cool that the technology got portable and you could put it in your ship.
it's portable technology.
Because
They-
it was a prototype in Empire.
Do you think
and now that they've proved it, it seems to be the chosen method for bounty hunters.
Yeah.
did Boba patent that before he died, and his
Oh,
family's
sure.
really reaping the benefits?
Yeah, of course. It's the Boba method.
I think
You have to imagine that perhaps Boba Fett was part of the Mandalorian clubhouse and shared his experience.
But he wasn't a Mandalorian.
You're right.
but he could have passed.
But he
That's,
might.
well,
but he
his
might not.
father was.
They never take off their
Was he?
helmets.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Was I guess this is worth looking
I
into.
don't think his father
Django
was.
Fett was not a
No, I
Mandalorian.
thought
don't
he
believe he
stole,
was.
he
Yeah.
stole the armor.
But maybe that could be
Gotcha.
the secrets of the Mandalorians, or that they're trying. They don't have an actual like heritage to it. It's
Did
just
they
like
say
a
that
way
in
of life.
Clones, or is it
I
like
don't remember.
is it just canon?
I thought it might have been just canon outside. of
Interesting.
that.
Okay,
I
I'm
don't.
gonna look
I'm
into
not.
this.
I
I'm
don't
curious.
remember. Yeah, we have Disney Plus to be able to go back and watch
Yeah,
it all.
okay. Looking
But
into it.
do we think that, and this is probably going to be answered, do we think that he's never had full Mandalorian armor, been building his own Mandalorian armor because he's been off-world, and he's slowly putting together his entire actual Beskar, is that what it was called, armor, and all the other stuff has been placeholders to try to feel like he was back and part of his family?
Oh, interesting.
I
Even
think
though he
they
hasn't
don't
been able
have
to.
enough of it. I think
Yeah.
I think what is today. I think what is in the date of the show, like modern Mandalorian armor, is made of other materials, and it's a patchwork. And I think that's what they're all working
But
with.
so he didn't have an original, though, because he
Right.
was too young when he was taken from Mandalore, so he never got like
Right.
an original.
Yeah, but maybe it's like a rite of passage. I don't really know much
it's
about
either a
that.
rite of passage, or I think it maybe fulfills some kind of prophecy.
Either
Where
way,
it's
this
like-
is ripe for a video game, and it is such like just leveling up that I was like, I want to do this. I want to go play Dragon Quest and forge. I want to forge a new sword tonight. You know,
Make
that's
sure
what
you return with a full Mandalorian set.
then you can enter the castle.
But first, I need you to get me 3 faunas.
And a
What was
wizard
the
token.
name of that creature? A blurg?
Oh yeah, blurg.
A third? Wait, what?
Blurg. I
a
thought.
third.
I thought it was a blurg.
I thought it was a blurg.
Well, we'll go
Hey,
back to the
This has
canon.
been the droids. Say
Wikipedia's
nonsense.
probably got it. I gotta say, wasn't there another moment where they had a very unimaginative word for something? We all laughed. I can't remember what it was. Kind of an unobtainium moment.
Oh, it was the myth creature.
Oh, yeah,
Oh,
the
Mythosaur.
Mythosaur.
Yeah, the Mythosaur.
That was
Mythosaur.
clunky.
Which I believe is what he rides.
You
in
rode the Mythosauric
the holiday
myth?
special. Yeah.
Yeah, and as Chris said, of course, that's the actual thing he rides in the
They
holidays.
say it's just a Triceratops.
Well, this has been our episode 1 of The Mandalorian instant reaction, review, analysis. All
Nice
right
socks,
here.
Mike. Whoa,
Thank you.
you're
I'm
wearing-
rocking the Rebel insignia on my socks here. Gotta be ready when you're. And Chris over here's got a nice Rogue One shirt on.
We're all
Nah,
giving each
I've
other
seen it
foot
before.
massages.
I've seen it before.
But I will say this has been just a pleasure. I mean, we
really
experienced a Star Wars TV show together, and I'll never forget it.
Pleasure and
Guys,
an honor.
it's the new world.
Sure is.
Disney Plus. Get it while it's hot.
Yep.
Just part 1 of this week, because this week we got
Yeah.
Jedi Fallen Order, episode 2 on Friday. I gotta say, if none of you want to join me on another pod on talking about episode 2, I'm doing it. I can't stop talking about this show. I'm so excited. Email us, droidspod@gmail.com, Twitter, droidspod, Instagram, droidspod, droids podcast on Facebook. Let us know what you thought of episode 1. We want to hear from you. We will read your emails on this podcast. We will get your info out there. We want to hear from you.
Address,
and
phone number.
but this has been
Routing number.
Just set us your attic down.
But this has been the Droids You're Looking For, a Star Wars podcast.
What they Mandalorian?
Ugh.
Blurg.
Blurg.
Wait, is the Liz Lemon coined it teach?
I don't know how deep I get.
That sounds no different than one of those clocks that go gong, 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 gong.
It is different, believe it or not.
Gong, gong, gong.
Wait, what?
Chocolate.
Wait, Chris, I missed that. Can you do it again?
Gong, 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 gong.
I remember like sleeping over at people's houses that had those clocks.
This is all being recorded.
Gong, gong, gong.
I remember like
at the end of the pod.
okay. I remember going to like someone's house and like having a sleepover, and they had one of those clocks, and just being like, "What is this?"
Why do you want to be
It's
awake?
one
That
in
would
the
be my
morning.
house.
Why do you
My
wanna-
parents had
why
not
do you
a
wanna be-
grandfather clock, but they had
Yeah.
a mantle clock.
We had a cuckoo clock that I'm pretty
nice
sure
to know
my
what
dad
hour it
ripped
is.
all the gears out of because it's like every hour it's going cuckoo, cuckoo. We used to mess with it all
What's
the
your
time.
mom's name?
That's it, Veronica.
He was like, "God damn it, Ronnie!"
Get that clock out of here. And then we kept throwing it away and it kept coming back. It was really weird.